We are live and we are free tonight. It is Rewind to Raw. John Pollock here alongside Wai Ting, where today everyone on the Post Wrestling YouTube channel is getting excelled.
Yeah, that's what we're calling it, right? Yeah. Free XL edition, I believe. Well, maybe not necessarily the first one, but the first one we're doing live. So, yeah, at the beginning of the month, a little bit of a freebie for people. A bit less editing on our part as well. So why not?
That was the main thinking. We want to give everyone a sample of what we do every Monday, every Wednesday, every Friday. So we're going to be doing the news. We're going to get into Raw from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then your feedback and questions.
Yeah,
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, maybe there's some people that aren't aware of like how we've been doing these, but since the beginning of this year, we've been doing these sort of we've been keeping our extended versions of the shows on in the Post Wrestling Cafe, and then we're just keeping the reviews themselves on the free feeds. But for those of you who might have only joined us in this iteration, in this era, we do about like a half hour talking about, the news stories of the day, or like in this case, the weekend, before we get into the Raw review itself. So those of you who might be tuning into this after the fact, just want the Raw review, look in the time code, which we will also always include for the XL editions for the Post Wrestling Cafe members as well.
So yes, it is it's a brand new month up at postwrestlingcafe.com. And if you want to get the XL editions of all of our shows on a weekly basis, you can do so. $6 gets you in the door at the Post Wrestling Cafe, and we have put up our schedule for the month of June. You can, whenever you sign up, your 30 days begins. You can also go the annual option as well. And some highlights this month, we're going to have 2 editions of Rewind Away. Our next one will focus on the 2018 New Japan documentary, California Dreamin', a 4-part series focusing on the LA Dojo and Katsuyori Shibata's post-in-ring career. And now, he's not doing any more California dreaming. He's doing some California living. So that will be our next discussion coming up next week. And then later this month, this is the highlight, I think, of the month. WWF Full Metal, the album. And why is this so big? Because I will have nothing to do with this. Instead, it is the triumvirate of Wai Ting, Nate Milton, and Dr. Chris Ely coming together for one of their acclaimed musical reviews. You guys have gone through Christmas Brawls, Slam Jam Volume 1. Now it's time to go. You did WrestleMania, the album. Now it's time for Full Metal, the album. You know something's big when it's ended with the album.
Oh, sure. Yeah, as opposed to Full Metal, I don't know, the
Jacket.
movie, the book. Yeah, sure. Full Metal Jacket. I'm looking forward to this. I always look forward to these, and I think our audience
So do I.
does as well. Well,
not just because I have that week off, but because I genuinely like listening to these.
It's one of the rare instances where I say screw it to the YouTube copyright rules, and I'll just like play music, and we listen to the songs and we discuss the songs. And in this case, it's a lot of our favorite 90s new generation era WWF themes, of course. So I'm looking very much to talking about this one with Nate and Chris.
So there you go. Those are some of the highlights for Rewind Away. We'll also be doing coverage of New Japan's Dominion show with Bruce Lord and Karen Peterson. We will have an Ask Away coming your way later on this Thursday. And also up later this week is Post Pro Res with the inimitable W.H. Park and Karen Peterson. So they will be back. Lots of great stuff coming up this coming week as well. Wai and I will be back on Saturday night after Money in the Bank and Worlds Collide. We'll be going through both of those shows, and then it is just, we also have a 4-hour Dynamite / Collision this week with Fyter Fest as well. So boy, you're gonna get plenty of us. We will be up super late Wednesday night after Fyter Fest.
Yeah, we'll pretty much just be recording more than I think doing anything else in our lives.
All right, all of that can be found up. The schedule's up, postwrestlingcafe.com, or just go to the website for everything that is listed there. We're going to get into the news. I'd like to start by talking a little bit about the passing of Jordan Breen, who was, someone that lots of memories shared today. This was somebody that, especially like if you were, this was someone that extended very much into professional wrestling, but I mean, in terms of MMA, he is probably most associated with the Sherdog website, later worked with Bloody Elbow for a time period. And Man, I don't even know how to really encapsulate Jordan Breen. If you were somebody that was following MMA, chances are you came across Jordan Breen's work, and he was, I think, instrumental in Sherdog being like the force that it was. I mean, for so many years, I mean, that was the database of record that everyone relied on, and Jordan, his impact on just that fight finder was immense. I mean, he was digging up results all over the world. I mean, in some ways, like just with MMA being so young, like he was almost curating the history of MMA. And, you know, there were a lot of great people at Sherdog, and Jordan Breen was hired like right out of high school there in 2006. He was around like 18, 19 years old. And I mean, you just look at the comments today. This was the most knowledgeable individual I've ever come across when it comes to mixed martial arts. And he could extend that to professional wrestling, to rap. Like, there was not a topic that I would not get into a conversation with him, and he could just go so many layers deep in. And I mean, I have so many memories of Jordan, and it's just, it's a really sad story today about, you know, his passing over the last, over the weekend.
Yeah. Do we know anything about how?
No, we don't know any circumstances. I mean, he had been living here in Toronto for a number of years. He was originally from Halifax, Nova Scotia. And then around 2019, 2020-ish, he had moved back to Nova Scotia. And he had really fallen off the map with a lot of people, myself included. And I know that Mike Bond, who was the one that reported his passing today, I mean, he was one that was going above and beyond trying to get into touch with Jordan. I mean, Jordan had a lot of struggles over these last couple of years, but we don't know what the specific cause of death was. Obviously, he was very young. His birthday would have been on Sunday, and that would have made him 38 as of Sunday. As well, like just criminally young, and someone that I just looked at as such an incredible talent, and got to know like on a personal level, and got to be, you know, really tight with this guy. He is all the things you read about him today. Like it takes you back to an era of MMA coverage that he was so critical to and understood on a level that I don't know if he had a peer when it came to that knowledge base and being able to contextualize and an understanding of like the business side, while he could break down the most obscure fighter that you could come up with. He would have like just an encyclopedic understanding of that fighter. And it was it was unbelievable to just see him on these shows where he could go into this level of depth and do it in with such ease. I mean, it was remarkable, really, when you look at what its contributions were.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, for me, it was I always enjoyed listening to him when I was like a lot deeper into MMA, because he always sounded somebody like who was incredibly entertaining. Like, he was a great broadcaster, had a great personality, and he had the knowledge to back it up. These are everything, like all the qualities you'd want, you know, as a broadcaster. But once he like moved to Toronto and then somehow like came into our sphere, the fact that like he like even do our stuff somehow, like now it really shouldn't surprise me because he knows everything. Like, you talk about how the depth of his knowledge of MMA, it extended pretty much to any topic out there. And like, I just remember him telling me a lot about like rap, but I think, like, again, shouldn't be any surprise, but like the depth of his knowledge in professional wrestling was also way, way, way deeper than I think, you know, well, you would have been able to tell just by listening to his MMA podcast. And we've had the pleasure to have him on at least one or two of our shows.
Several,
right?
yeah.
Several of our shows. And got to maybe share a bit of that with the audience, but just a real shame, you know. Like a genius in many ways, and yeah, just a real loss.
Yeah, I mean, I first met him, I want to say it was around, like, obviously I had been aware of him for a long time. We had him on the Fight Network radio show several times, but didn't really know him more than like his work. And I remember it was when we were in Winnipeg. I probably met him before, but it was when you and I covered UFC 161 in Winnipeg. And in my head was, okay, I feel like this guy could just wax poetic on anything MMA related, and would just think like this guy could be like so arrogant in person that just someone is not at his level. And I could not have been more wrong about someone who was just, I ended up hanging out with him that entire weekend, and he couldn't have been like the more of a just more of a, like a down to earth, and like that's how he was with everybody. And you might listen to him and think he had this like abrasive style, and in person he was just like just so welcoming of everyone. And he is one that when he first invited me to do one of his press row shows, like I remember going onto that show and like literally like studying beforehand, because I was like, to be on the show with this guy, it could be like, I want to make sure I am absolutely on top of this stuff, because I knew like his depth was unbelievable. And then you go on a show with him and he was just like the easiest person to do a show with, because mainly he was going to give you a million talking points and you could go in any direction with, and that just extended. And I just became such good friends with him, and he would come on our shows. I would go on his show quite a lot, and just being based in Toronto, we would end up like at a lot of these different shows, whether they were here or in Canada or Vegas. And I was just, it was just one of those terrible bits of news to hear today that it just, man, just really threw me today. Like it really just took me out of everything today when I heard this.
Yeah. He was, just a very colorful character, certainly, and one that I just even remember, in like a little sort of community of, I would say like people our age, that were doing this sort of thing in a combat sports journalistic environment. You just mentioned the name, and he just like, I remember like Hawani asking us about like meeting Jordan Breen and like, what our thoughts were, because he was just like the most colorful character in the room, in sort of the space. And I mean, yeah, I don't think I'll meet somebody like him again.
And just, I mean, when you go back, it's like, I don't know what like the archive situation is like, but I'm sure so much of it is just lost to, digital archive death. But man, I wish people had a chance to go back and listen to some of his press rows or his roundtables, because I mean, that's like a part of history, and the topics that he was covering. Like this was someone that was diving into, the antitrust stuff when so few were covering it, or having on or discussing like Tim Hague passing away, and like these real significant journalistic stories that he approached, and was like someone that I can't remember if this was a show or with me that he was just telling me this to, and I can't even remember, but it was just this idea of like his approach. It's like, what's a fighter gonna do? Like punch me in the face? You think I haven't been punched in the face before? So what? Like he was just like somebody that had like just such a determined factor about him that just that was so reflected in his work. Like he did not give a fuck what you thought, and there was nobody that could match this guy in terms of knowledge level, of wit, and he was just such a rarity when you look at this, and you kind of miss that in the moment. And then it's sadly these times that I'm starting to get frustrated at, that we get to these points when we reflect on people once they're gone. And this was somebody that should have been just a force in any kind of media. And again, like he did have a lot of struggles over these last number of years that he was going through. And like I know there were people that were trying to reach out to him, and
I know you were.
It was, it was very heartbreaking to hear, like, updates, and quite frankly, I don't know how much he wanted people concerned about him or thinking about that. It was, I'm sorry. I don't really have a lot of eloquence here, because it's like it's been on my mind all day.
We're not looking for eloquence. Just say what you want.
It's just very sad, man. When you see someone of that age, and like, it was just he was dealt a really bad hand, and someone that, I mean, I was just in awe of this guy from a talent perspective, and that would have been enough. And he was just such a cool person as well. Like, he was, like, whatever term you want to assign to him, eccentric, or just like, he was just the life of any place you were at, and he was everything you would envision, like, listening to him. And I thought MMA was worse for it when he stopped being part of the scene, and his voice was very missed. I think that's something that you can apply. There would always be room for a Jordan Breen in any endeavor. And I remember when the Dark Side of the Cage was, they were developing this, and they were like, who would you recommend? I was like, if you can track down Jordan Breen, he is your person. He would be your person. Like, I would put him in every episode if you could get him. Like, he would be that important to your series in terms of, like, your chronicler of history that can talk about any topic and would be able to do it on a moment's notice. And it just, they could not, I don't think they could track him down. And he should have been someone that was, full-time employed in MMA or anywhere else. But, yes, very, very tragic story. So I'm sure a lot of people will be sharing stories of Jordan Breen in the days, weeks to come. And I hope some of his stuff, like, surfaces online, because it's another part that we look at in this digital age way, is that sometimes, like, you leave a site and your stuff disappears, or there's turnover, and this stuff gets lost to history. And in MMA, it's still, like, a relatively young sport, and a lot of that history was housed on SureDog. Like, that was the go-to place for fighters, for fans, and that culture that they grew, and that Fight Finder that, Breen worked on, and people like Rob King and Chris Nelson and Robert Sargent, and there was, like, an army that went through that Fight Finder. And that was, for many fighters, like, that's what they relied on. Like, they go to a commission, it's like, what's your record? They'd have to go to SureDog for so many of them. Like, there was MMA.tv, they would develop their records, and now you have Tapology and Wikipedia. But pre all of that, I mean, SureDog was the brand in MMA, quote unquote, media in the mid 2000s. Like, that was, there weren't too many sites doing it. Like, before there was a MMA Junkie or UFC Junkie, it was like MMA Weekly. There was SureDog. Like, there were not a ton of outlets covering this, and not at that depth that SureDog was, for sure. And Jordan Breen was such a instrumental part of that. So, also someone that was, if you were a listener of those roundtable shows, that's how I became acquainted with Brandon from New Jersey. It was like, his calls with Jordan were just, as you could imagine, those two were terrific together. And I would listen to those roundtable shows, and this Brandon from New Jersey would call in, and dude, I was just, I was very taken by this Brandon from New Jersey character. And Jordan would talk to this guy for 2 hours if necessary. I'm exaggerating only slightly, maybe 90 minutes.
Yeah, our thoughts to anybody who, well, obviously his friends and family, but anybody, I guess, who maybe enjoyed his work as well.
We're going to move over to the WWE talent news. So we now are up to 3 talents who are not having their contracts renewed. If you weren't aware of some of them, they were chanted throughout tonight, that being R-Truth. But joining him, Carlito, and now Valhalla, Sarah Rowe, who has not been on television for a long time. She had been on maternity leave over the last year. And so all 3 of them separately posted R-Truth and Carlito over the weekend, and then Sarah Rowe today. All essentially the same message. They've been told that their contracts are coming due and they're not going to be renewed. So these are not technically cuts. They are at least letting their contracts run up. But I cannot recall, like, the cuts are never met positively by a fan base. But in the case of R-Truth, I don't know if you have had such anger from people, this has become like really a referendum on this guy's entire career at this point, and doing this into his 50s, and coming back a few years ago from that torn quad, and the contributions that he's had, that it's been really interesting to see. Like, we talk so often, Way, about how this is now a audience that very much is with the program. They are not there to disrupt. And I'm not saying that this is like a turning point, but we definitely saw a chance of protest tonight at various points of Raw. And that is not something that we have seen too often over these last couple of years. And it's like these small little things that in the last month we have seen. If you were a fan that was going to WrestleMania or something, it's like it gets yanked, and granted, not going to affect everyone, but you have the combination of, TKO's tactics that have sort of been mounting on fans, from prices being increased, the continued commercialization of this. Now it's like a beloved figure that's taken away. It's all these little things that I think are at least forming a bit of a nucleus for some fans that are just seeing this as, things that are not fan friendly in a company that is not necessarily designed to be like living and dying based on fan reception. Like, this is a business to business entity.
It's a shareholder friendly company.
That is the better description of it. And when you have so much guaranteed revenue and your objective is margins, this is the collateral damage that is going to happen. And fans somewhat feel as though WWE could sell 0 tickets the rest of this year and they're going to be wildly profitable. And that's sort of where I think at least some of the audience is. Some will not care about this, but this is one that at least I think touched a nerve with people over the weekend, specific with R-Truth.
Yeah. Well, Truth is an interesting one because he's somebody who was so at the forefront of their own content just a weekend prior. Being in, you can argue, maybe the most publicized match, if we're to assume John Cena is the most publicized figure on that particular Saturday night.
This was
event.
R-Truth's most significant program in years.
Yeah. Then you can say that R-Truth, being his opponent, played a very pivotal role in that particular show. So, and beyond that, I feel like TKO and WWE severely underestimated how beloved this person is. On the surface, you can understand the cut, like between he and Carlito, 2 of the more senior members of the roster. And with that, I also suspect with R-Truth, maybe being in the company for so long, perhaps his contract might have gotten to a point where they, beyond what maybe they'd want to justify for somebody in a comedic role, but they also did not take into account just I would suggest this to be a little bit of a PR nightmare for them as a result of this. And so much of that comes from the fact that he was so fresh from a Cena program, the fact that his t-shirt as a part of that Cena program has been doing tremendously well. Also, the fact that being in the company for so long and being well liked by so many people, you got the roster now being upset and vocally, expressing their disapproval of something like this, and I'm sure going to reporters to express that disapproval as well. All of this has been turning into you lined out a lot of the points of why an audience might not be happy. I'd add to that less than favorable opinions about the build to WrestleMania this year. All the stuff with Dwayne, just being confusing. Add to that, even the smallest thing, putting a logo on a table or competing with AEW by putting counter programming every little thing. All of these things are just simply adding up to will certainly take us away from what felt like an extended honeymoon period for this Paul Levesque / TKO era, and you couple that with an AEW that is garnering actually very favorable reviews right now, it definitely feels like, at least within like a very small base, there is a bit of a shifting of the tide.
And this does mirror a lot of the same sentiments that you are hearing on the UFC side. And in both WWE and UFC, we could go through all the gate figures that they're doing, and they're incredible. Like, I would say both companies are still like red hot at this point, but there is this kind of building dissatisfaction among some that are looking at a lot of these areas. And on the UFC side, the fact that there are, some of these cards that are just exceptionally lackluster, that there is not the big must-see fights that are coming together like they once were, that there's a big demand for a John Jones-Tom Aspinall fight that they've been dragging their feet on and is not moving forward. It's just all these little things that are somewhat adding up. And is it something that is going to keep TKO up at night? Maybe not. I mean, they are like, typically this stuff, it happens and we move on. I mean, tonight we had a "We Want Truth" chant, and within 45 seconds it was "This is awesome" as soon as they did a AJ Styles near fall. So I mean, but it is something where you are operating where I always say this, there is a portion of your audience that you are no longer selling to, that are only going to experience your product on television or streaming, that they are never going to come to your mid to small town market anymore with the absence of domestic house shows, that when they do come to somewhere, it's for TV or a PLE, and the price is going to be staggering for you to take your two children to go see, that it will no longer be an in-person experience you have with WWE. You will strictly be a viewer if you want to be a fan of this. And is that a significant number? It's probably not insignificant, but as long as there are the other fans that are willing to meet all those ticket price increases, then that is good business on WWE. They are creating a supply for a growing demand. But at the same time, on a week-to-week basis, I think you are somewhat, this has been a company that has been riding a wave of popularity and goodwill, typically among its audience, that has been able to obfuscate two massive lawsuits against this company. But it's like, that's outside the fictional world that fans can live inside of, to
separate themselves from it.
They can state they can divorce themselves from that. But like an R-Truth being cut, like that hits a nerve with fans, because they really love this character, and that's going to get some. We're never going to hear a Janelle Grant chant on television, but you will hear an R-Truth chant, because that does permeate a larger segment where they have a more emotional reaction to this beloved figure.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, to me, like the exit of Vince McMahon into this Paul Levesque regime has, to me, has been marked by, I think, a more a greater understanding of its audience and a greater awareness of what the audience wants. That, to me, has been the big difference maker, and part of the reason why I think this regime has been like so successful so far, at least creatively. Moves like what has been happening, I think, called to perhaps I don't know, either an unawareness or like a deliberate sort of a lack of awareness to or care about what the audience wants in favor of what makes the most money for the company. And I think that'll come to bite them in the ass, because I think it starts with, satisfying the hardcore base. It always does. Yes, like I'm sure there's they're very happy with, like, the amount of attention they might be getting with their celebrities, but it starts with the hardcores, and it extends beyond that. And again, if we're just strictly talking about maybe our audience and a discussion of like the competition, this is the type of like sentiment that created AEW in the first place, and it's the type of sentiment that could create another, not as big of a wave, but at least a bit of a wave of momentum for the competition.
Sarah Rowe has indicated this is probably the end of her career. She's married to Eric of the War Raiders. They have two children now. With Carlito and R-Truth, like, these are two performers that are certainly up there in age. What do you see for these two? Mainly, we'll start with R-Truth, because I think this guy is going to be in demand by literally any company that could afford whatever this guy wants to charge. And I think that the wrestling world outside of WWE is this guy's oyster, and it's all dependent on what he wants to do. After decades of working here on this stint in WWE, that I'm sure he has at least like a nice cushion that is not going to force him to have to go this direction. Like he can kind of write his ticket, because I don't think there's any company that will not show some interest in him.
Yeah, I think every company will be interested who I'll say can show him like a decent contract. And I think at the forefront of that is WWE. Okay, I think if you're Levesque, you're seeing the reactions tonight. They're thinking about everything they could do to bring this guy back in some capacity. Now, how can they do that in a way that won't make themselves look bad? Like it's basically admitting that we made a mistake, right? But I think that they will, at the very least, attempt to make some sort of deal, whether it be like some sort of part-time deal or like a Legends contract type of deal, maybe some sort of, I don't know, some sort of coaching role, something to like save themselves in this like mini PR nightmare that I think they've done.
Wouldn't all of these ideas been thrown out there? Like this could not be so unforeseen with R-Truth. Like if this had been the reaction to Carlito, I would have said, okay, I didn't see that one coming. But R-Truth, if you had told me they're not going to renew R-Truth's contract, how will people react to this? I think most people would have expected this kind of a reaction for R-Truth, especially over this last period where he's been as featured as any point in years in a prominent segment on Saturday night's Main Event, where they just did a tremendous number.
I wonder. I'll be honest. I didn't expect it to be this big. I expected people to be upset, but I didn't expect this many people to be this upset about it. And I can see that they maybe didn't anticipate this as much either. But if we're looking at like the top potential bidders for like a free agent R-Truth, I kind of feel like WWE is still at the top of that list, as strange as that may sound.
DDT or bust.
I mean, yeah, sure. Like, why not? But I just don't see him wanting to do anything outside of like an AEW. You know what I mean?
Would AEW, would this be a valuable pickup if you?
But even AEW? That's a tough mix, because they're not necessarily the place for these sort of comedic figures. But I mean, I'm sure Tony is interested in making money as well, right? He's interested in. I'm sure they could find a role for him.
They sign R-Truth and they announced that next spring we're going to New Orleans. That's their playbook.
Yeah, these Carlito. A bit
well, we know he's gonna continue in Puerto Rico. I mean, he just won the World Wrestling Council championship, like with his family's promotion.
Like is he still like, does he have ownership? Like, what exactly is his role in that promotion?
I mean, it's just like that's it's still
literally a home promotion.
Yeah, it is. Like I feel like he'll do kind of what he was doing pre-WWE. I don't expect him to be like hitting the pavement running when it comes to pro wrestling.
Yeah, he's got some notoriety coming off of like being like the fifth member of Judgment Day. Like, and I thought he found a good fit for himself. Doing like the one-liners here and there. But I don't necessarily see the demand from like an AEW, for instance. I kind of feel like for talent like that, TNA would be like a sensible landing spot if they're looking to still retain some sort of like presence on North American television. We want to say I'm seeing a lot less sympathy for Sarah Rowe Valhalla here online, a lot less, and by that I would mean almost the opposite of what you might be seeing for R-Truth.
Really?
Yeah.
Is there some negativity towards Sarah Rowe that I'm not familiar with? Okay.
Yeah, there is. I don't even know how much I necessarily feel like responsible in getting into here, but there are things that are tacked to Instagram stories that she's made in the past that have referenced what's termed the Boogaloo movement. I don't know if you're familiar with that, along with like other glimpses into her personal life that at least to an online audience has certainly I would say rubbed them the wrong way. So there's maybe just a bit of a gauge of, I think, the difference in opinions from online audiences.
Well, it sounds like she is calling it a day with professional wrestling. So that kind of ends that one. But yeah, I don't know. Like R-Truth, I think it's really down to like whatever he is interested in. Like I would think Joey Janela would break the GCW budget to face this guy at a homecoming or a spring break. I mean, I think this would be like his ultimate.
He'd pay top dollar just to sign Little Jimmy to a match.
Oh my! Little Jimmy could face the Invisible Man, and
although we don't, we're assuming Little Jimmy still has a valid WWE contract. I don't think they're releasing him.
Could you imagine that they introduce Little Jimmy, but explain that his likeness is still property of WWE, and he has to be rebranded?
Yeah,
and he has to change his look.
Small James,
Tiny
James.
This could be quite the run. Well, WWE cushioned the blow of these talent moves by announcing that Slim Jim has extended their agreement with the company. And under this new agreement, Slim Jim will be the center ring sponsor during every edition of Raw that began tonight. In addition to the in-ring placement, WWE will introduce a first-of-its-kind integration that is going to see Slim Jim branding on all folding tables used across tentpole programming such as Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and WWE Premium Live events. This branded table placement will create unforgettable moments when WWE superstars, quote, snap into a Slim Jim table during matches. The partnership will continue to include custom commercial spots featuring WWE superstars, curated social media campaigns, and WWE superstar appearances. Well, if the actual Slim Jim snack doesn't make you heave, seeing these tables and having Michael Cole scream that it's a first of its kind snap into a Slim Jim table. When does Bubba have to call on that one to be brought out?
Whenever they ask him to, he will. Yeah, I would say this is the
death of the tables being the coolest weapon for WWE fans to chant.
I was going to say this is the second big misread by WWE PR management and just whatever marketing firm that they have for these sort of decisions. I mean, again, I'm sure on the surface, sensible, like, hey, like we're putting our logo on every little thing that's a part of these shows anyway. What is the most over inanimate object that we have the rights to brand? And I guess sensibly they would determine the thing that people would actually chant for being the one that the thing that they should be putting their logo on and trying to make money off of next. Again, sensible from like a marketing perspective, but completely off the mark in execution and in anticipation of, I think, how an audience would react to it. We are learning that, well, there certainly is a limit to what I would say at least, the sort of diehard WWE fan will accept for their marketing. I mean, the ring ape, what is it? The mat. I guess that was already controversial enough, but we've largely come to accept it. Like there's still complaints about, certain weeks here and there, but it's not to the point where like they would reverse course. I would anticipate this to be similar. Like I don't think people are going to be anti Slim Jim table so much that like somehow they'll change course on this, but it's certainly again a lot more vocal than I anticipated, and just kind of creates another notch in this sort of like negative like reputation that is currently building up for this TKO regime.
The marketplace is frothy.
It certainly is, yeah.
I look forward to our first Slim Jim tables, ladders, and chairs match. We have other weapons, okay?
Yeah.
They're probably in the midst of trying to sell off chair sponsorships. I mean, anything possible. They're going to slap a logo on. And I mean, this is... Are
you looking forward to the General Mills Hell in a Cell taking place in 3 weeks? Or however many months?
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. Kendo sticks, open season. We go on over to New Japan. What are the chances of R-Truth in the G1 this year? Slim?
Yeah, Slim Jim. Yeah.
He doesn't have a no-compete. Contract's up. He can go anywhere. Could be at Dominion.
Man, that was certainly missed branding. Like, I mean, like having little Jimmy around for Slim Jim. Come on.
It's a big wasted opportunity. Well, Kosei Fujita won the Best of the Super Juniors on Sunday at Oda Ward Gymnasium. Just over 3,000 people in attendance. This match was incredible. It was definitely the match of the tournament. Many are calling this a match of the year contender. It was 28 minutes, and the heat for this match was amazing. This audience saw this as such a significant match. It was... Here you had your youngest winner in the history of the tournament in Kosei Fujita, who is 22 years old. The end saw Kosei Fujita utilizing a Zack driver and then his abandoned hope for a near fall before he hit the thrill ride. Just this whole stretch, in particular, like the building of the match, like Fujita, this was probably the match of his career. You might go so far as to say it was Yo's as well. Like these two gelled in such a great way. Like this is definitely a must-see match if you have the opportunity. But what they are doing different is instead of getting the title shot at Dominion, as is tradition, they are holding off on this match because Desperado is trying to get a match with Jun Kasai for June 24th, where they will murder one another. And then probably Fujita gets the title shot on one of the shows before the G1 would be my guess. The way this is set up, I can't see them holding off on this until like the final night of the G1. I mean, they could, but that's a long wait. I think they should just go all the way here with Fujita. Like this was a real career-making match for him. And again, if you just want to hear an audience that is on fire for the majority of this match, like that added even more to the drama of this whole thing. So a real big highlight. Then we had just some notes from over the weekend. El Hijo del Vikingo won the AAA Mega Championship. So WWE got to just refresh their graphic from last week and got to air it as is tonight. So Vikingo in, Alberto out. And they did not show any footage of this on Raw either. Didn't see any footage of Alberto losing the belt. It was just announced Vikingo won on the weekend. Belt fell into his lap.
Yeah, maybe they're saving it for the show on Saturday.
Do you think this is a very clear indication we will never see Alberto on a WWE co-promoted event? Or do you see that
at present? Yes, but I don't think you can ever shut the door on these things. You know, like we've now seen that this is a company that is not impervious from PR mistakes, and at some point it could happen. But at the moment, I think it's a very clear sign that like they still think Alberto has negative reputation attached to him and not worth the headache, I suppose. So in the meantime, I would say it's pretty clear that we're not.
The UFC lost its main event on Saturday night, and this was a very scary situation. So Aaron Blanchfield was coming out for the fight for the main event on Saturday at the Apex. And then as they're going to the video package, it's noted that Maycee Barber would not be able to make the walk. And they call off the main event, like literally as it's about to begin. And afterwards, Aaron Blanchfield, who was very critical of Maycee Barber after she missed weight on Friday, she obviously had a lot of issues going into this fight. She stated she was told through Hunter Campbell, who was like the key executive in the UFC, that she had suffered a seizure. And Barber did post from the hospital, but that is a very, very scary situation. If you're having a seizure, I mean, you would be questioning if like fighting is something she is going to be able to do. Like you have got to get to the root problem of this. But this could have been very scary way if the fight had begun and suddenly she has a seizure in the middle of the fight. It's actually lucky that this happened beforehand. I mean, like this could have been like right on national television, and it just literally happened moments before she was to walk out for the fight. A very bizarre situation for a UFC card to take place, but one where certainly they are going to have to get the bottom of this for Maycee Barber and whether she's going to continue fighting and get this addressed. Jim Ross is back home after surgery. He did post an update. And finally, NXT on Tuesday night is going to feature Trick Williams and Mike Santana for the TNA title, a rounds match between Charlie Dempsey and Miles Bourne, and Dark State taking on Andre Chase, Uriah Connors, and Cale Dixon. Fyter Fest, Wednesday night, 4 hours of AEW in Denver features Kenny Omega, Mascara Dorada, Claudio Castagnoli, and Brody King for the international title. What is your prediction on how long this match goes, Way? If I say over or under 43 minutes of television time.
43.
Yeah.
I mean,
they have 4 hours, Way.
It's one fall. I don't see this necessarily being a marathon. Like if it was elimination rules, maybe. But I mean, they're gonna go at a pretty fast pace, I'm assuming, and to drag that up for 40 minutes, it'll be a tough one. I'm gonna say under, but
under. Okay.
Yeah.
How about 30 minutes?
30 minutes is, I guess, it's possible. Yeah.
I think they go 30.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
John Moxley takes on Mark Briscoe in a non-title match. Timeless, any chance of an upset here, and Briscoe gets a win to set up a TV title match?
No.
It's very un-AEW like to do that, but
I think they're not going to have Moxley lose anything from now.
His kids are going to be watching because they thought their father quit the previous week. I mean, this would be such a depressing loss for Mark Briscoe. He'd be letting down his kids here.
Wouldn't be the first time.
FTR against Atlantis Jr. and Templario. Timeless Tony Storm and Mina Shirakawa against Julia Hart and Sky Blue. Kevin Knight, the returning Kevin Knight, with Speedball Mike Bailey and Commander against Rush Dralistico and Beast Mortos, which could be really great. Tekla makes her in-ring debut for AEW, and we will hear from the Hurt Syndicate. So they have rounded out this card, and we'll see how this experiment goes of 4 hours on Wednesday night. This is going to be the first of 2 on back-to-back weeks for Wednesday nights.
Yeah. What time will you be having your coffee?
11.
11
p.m.
Oh,
maybe.
okay.
I might.
Wow. All right.
It's going to be a late night on Wednesday. That's coming up. So we will be back with Rewinded Dynamite. And how do we do this? Do we just go right into Raw? Do we have to
I
play
think
music?
we still got to hit the theme music.
All right. Let's we don't have anyone new to let in. The whole club is filled to the brim, but they want to hear that beat.
When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind Around with John Pollock and Wai Ting, the A-Team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind Around for Monday night, download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind Around for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the
Mic. Raw.
We went 47 minutes there.
I know, it was a long
Those
one.
of you who might just be tuning in, that will be like, get to the wrestling already, all right?
Timestamps.
Yeah, well, I mean, you only have to wait 47 minutes.
Listen,
right?
folks, this is what you get on the XL edition, okay? We don't undersell XL, okay? We're not going an extra 5 minute.
That was a
minutes.
double XL.
Yeah, this is
We're
the
honest.
underrun, okay? Wait till the overrun afterwards, okay? So let's get into the show. 9,081 per WrestleTix in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Michael Cole, the loser of the bet after the Knicks were eliminated, had to wear an Indiana Pacers jersey for the whole show.
Ooh.
Humiliating.
How will he ever let this down? He's never done... Oh,
He had
He's
to
done far
show
more.
up like he was Zack Ryder's dad. That was his punishment for, look at this fan in the front row. He thought this was just an embarrassing.
yeah.
Is this really like that awful?
After you've had the heel run that you've had, this is nothing.
This guy got
Okay.
barbecue sauce doused on top of him by John Cena that we just relived a few weeks ago.
How many of these people have seen the NXT season with the women? All right, the competition NXT season 3. All right,
Yeah.
that's embarrassing. Okay, this is nothing.
John Heidenreich was embarrassing.
Yes. Mhm.
CM Punk arrives, and he makes some references to the Thunder and that they're on pace for a thunderstorm. So this got an OKC chant going. This actually was pretty great that they had he had to wear the Pacers jersey, and here they are in Oklahoma right before the finals are supposed to start. So, I mean,
you're
we
right.
did have some geographical alignment for tonight. He's a 2-time Money in the Bank winner. He calls John Cena a bitch, and it's time for him to win the championship. So Sami Zayn comes out and he states that he is not going to be able to go through Money in the Bank, but he too wants to become champion, and he doesn't want Punk to be overlooking anything. He says if Rollins wins the Money in the Bank and becomes champion, this place it's over. It will be unrecognizable. We're going to have logos on tables. This place will not be recognizable to the WWE you grew up watching, Phil. And they shake on it, and Zayn warns him, stating, if you do become champion, we're going to have another conversation, and it will be very different from this one. So both men have their sights set on the championship, and not getting too far ahead of ourselves, but neither will be going through the Money in the Bank process.
Yeah. Interesting direction for the story, you know, after like what felt like very subtle teases of the turn. Zayn is still appearing very genuine about his desire for Punk to win. We're assuming out of like, you know, genuinely like good sort of well-wishing. So these two we've seen since their Saturday night's main event have now grown to be like pretty close friends. They're not even, you know, so much there's no tension really. Like they're actually in full support of each other. So we'll see how that breaks down.
I like this a lot. I thought Sami was very good, and Punk was mega over to this crowd in Tulsa. Liv and Raquel are with Roxanne Perez, and she offers their help to Raquel and Liv later tonight when Liv has her qualifier. Liv tells Perez to stay out of her way. Don't sabotage another one of my matches. I was like, didn't she just blame Raquel a week ago for this?
She blamed Raquel for being the veteran, and I guess not. Yeah, maybe ultimately the veteran gets most of the blame, but she, I mean, it's not like Roxanne was not at fault.
Well, she says that. She walks away, and Liv runs into Io, stating she will cash in on her. Sky says that will not happen.
Yeah. Oh well.
Imagine if Io said, "You know what? You're right." Damn it.
Yeah. Who won the match tonight? I'm trying to remember.
It was Vaquer.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, she was right. It won't happen.
Yeah. We had an introductory video for Vaquer where she found WWE when she was 10. I had to look this up. Imagine finding WWE in 2003 when you were 10 years old.
Oh my.
What a product.
Yeah, maybe she was I hope she was watching SmackDown.
Great. She would have got
and not the HLA era of Raw.
She would have got the death of Al Wilson, and then Sable and Tori
Zach
Wilson
Gowen?
and Zach Gowen. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there would have been that huge period for creating new fans. Well, she's here to dominate, and she would start off her quest to dominate against Liv Morgan and Ivy Nile in our qualifier. This was the first time we heard the chants of "We Want Truth."
I heard a little bit of it in the Sami Punk segment as well.
Well, then they were even earlier than this.
Yeah.
So Vaquer has also brought up to the main roster the Devil's Kiss that Pat has now been given the Booker T role to. I could be polite and say grunt, or be honest and say like Booker T was basically on the verge of an orgasm.
Yeah, I think that was what was suggested.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard for anybody to replicate it, you know. And I think
Pat was not jumping on top of this. I don't think he wants this to be his thing.
No, I don't know.
I don't think anyone wants this to be.
I think this is something for Joe.
It's very uncomfortable.
It's something for Joe Tessitore to try on Fridays. I don't think you kind of have to do it. It's like it's her most famous move. It's one of the things that I think has helped her connect with the audience. I think it's going to be reliant on the audience to pick it up. And Tulsa tonight, they were more so counting it. Like it felt like a much more of a PG sort of like treatment of this move.
I'll take the counting over the climaxing. So the Nile hits a double German and then a Tower of Doom. We saw Vaquer with a European clutch onto Nile for a 2 count, and then the SVB gets stopped by Morgan. She lands Oblivion, and Nile tries to steal the pin. Liv is then run into the steps, and Nile rolls into the ring into the SVB and gets pinned in 10:18 by the addition to the main roster. Stephanie Vaquer, 10 minutes, 18 seconds. So it is Stephanie Vaquer with Naomi, Julia, Roxanne Perez, Alexa Bliss, and Rhea Ripley, which is quite the lineup for the women's match on Saturday.
Yeah, we kind of spoke about it on Friday, I believe, but like the rush between her losing the championship to getting this immediate call-up and entry into the Money in the Bank match would suggest that this was a pretty...
like the R-Truth sign right here facing the hard camera.
But it suggests that this was a pretty late decision, and that I makes me wonder if like JC Jane was always going to be the person to win the championship, or if this was just a last minute call because hey, we want to have Stephanie Vaquer in the Money in the Bank match, and this is how we want to do it. But if you're gonna like hotshot somebody into the match, I thought they did a very good job here. Of all the recent NXT call-ups, she to me has already the most star appeal, and part of it is because I think her NXT run has turned out really well. She's just even, certainly ahead of Julia if we're going to compare the two. And she just feels like, a complete package in terms of just like her look, her wrestling, and just how much this audience, even in Tulsa, seemed to treat her like a big deal.
She had a Kevin Owens run through NXT where it was like, boom, she was in and out of NXT and on the main roster in no time. So, I mean, she made a great decision for herself coming here.
Oh, yeah.
So we talked about Friday that tonight would be AJ Styles and CM Punk, their first time having a match together, minus this year's Rumble, since IWA Mid-South for Ian Rotten in 2004. So AJ and CM Punk, some animosity along the way. But I guess AJ was going to be burying the hatchet with not just one, but multiple enemies on his birthday, no less, as he is approached by Paul Heyman. And AJ asks what Paul wants, and Paul says, I just want to explain that I had nothing to do with Carl or Gallows. I promise, okay? Just like I had nothing to do with R-Truth leaving. There's one person that makes the decision about these cuts. And AJ is wished a happy birthday, and Paul explains that you should keep your eyes on the IC title and go after Dom. Let Rollins take the Money in the Bank instead. And AJ thinks about this, and boy, was he deep in thought. Are you tired, Paul, of chasing that meal ticket? He says, I'll get back to Dominic, but I don't respond well to threats. And hell, I know Rollins' plan, but as they say, everyone's got a damn plan until they get punched in the mouth. And I know that you fired my friends. God damn. And out walks AJ as Heyman is left without a handshake being reciprocated.
I missed your AJ.
I did too.
Yeah, certainly.
Do you know how closely I paid attention to this to make sure I didn't miss any flub like last time? I still, that one keeps me up at night that I missed.
Oh, he was perfect here. Yeah.
Tremendous elocution by AJ Styles. Rusev promo. He addresses Sheamus. He is trying to fix the weak and prevent them from slipping into the abyss, and tells Sheamus, you were nowhere to help me years ago when I needed it. And we get a shot of the gone and definitely forgotten League of Nations.
Mm-hmm.
Rewind away, WrestleMania 32.
Who else was in that group?
The man that will not be named, our former mega champion. That was one of them. And our SmackDown commentator himself, Mr. Barrett himself. Yes. What a group. What a forgettable group.
Was Claudio in that?
No.
He was not. No.
Yeah, it was the four of them. Then Rusev says, Sheamus, you have a body of granite, but a neck of sand. Which was the term.
Callback.
That was his description of himself in AEW. Mm-hmm. So now it's Sheamus that has the neck of sand. Yeah. He says that you are a true legend, and it will be my honor to take you off the field and send you home. And warns Sheamus that he will snap his neck.
Yeah.
So does this mean Rusev, after leaving the abyss, he has also regenerated all of his vertebrae in his neck, and now he has a strong neck?
Yeah, well, he says, I used to be like you. I used to have, a neck made of sand. So, yeah, we're somehow to believe that upon exiting the abyss, found a new neck.
Better medical care in WWE? Is that what he's inferring?
Maybe you could get stem cells for cheap in the abyss.
Okay. Sheamus is with Tozawa, Natalya, and Maxine, and gives Tozawa a pep talk and tells all three of them, you all have heart. I'm like, thanks, Sheamus. Kathy asks him about Rusev.
No, I guess, yeah. But he said it in a way that, while specifically looking at Natalya, like, it's just so corny. Like,
yeah, that's lame. He explains to Kathy Kelly that he goes way back with Rusev. He was a groomsman at my wedding, but then his career imploded at WWE due to his decisions, and his career outside of WWE lasted as long as Rusev Day. And he has to clarify, 24 hours.
I mean, it lasts longer than that. Does he mean
Didn't
like
they chant that for like months?
I was saying
That's what got Rusev over at the end.
I meant his career outside of the WWE.
Oh, he lasted years.
Yeah,
he was gone
like he was
for
on
5
like
years.
a 3-year contract. Or 5-year contract. You know, maybe he meant to say like your level of success lasted.
Was as successful as Rusev Day? Maybe. I mean, I can't
No,
say
it was
Rusev
not.
Day was a failure, but anyway.
Oh, big success. Yeah.
Sheamus ends by saying, "I bully bullies."
Yeah, I'm liking the story. Well, like at least the pairing of these two, it makes a lot of sense. There's history between each other. I didn't even know that he was the groomsman for Sheamus. I mean,
Yeah.
You're a groomsman for somebody. Okay, that means there's footage of there somewhere. At the very least, some nice photos that we could see.
Exactly.
And if you got photos, then you got a deep wrestling rivalry. Okay. Plus the addition of the injured back or like injured neck, whatever Rusev was trying to say, with the combination of the accolade being the sort of like a thing that will specifically target it. I'm liking all of this.
Finn Balor and JD McDonough against the War Raiders with New Day on commentary. No Carlito.
No mention of him. Like no, not even like a throwaway line to explain like Poochie went off to back to his home planet. Nothing. We're just like gonna pretend he was never there.
Yeah, he's gone. That's it. So Ivar hits a handspring, sending Balor off the apron, and they send JD over the top to the floor, and he nails himself into the desk, and they're having flashbacks from before, but this was not a risky fall into the desk.
Oh, this was like almost comical. He did
he was just like
the
he hit
Rock
the floor
stone.
and just kind of rolled backwards.
He did like a weird backflip, like the Rock would sell the Stone Cold Stunner. Yeah.
And then JD did his big Osai moonsault, but he did it towards the entrance, which is a lot more room. You're not going to bump into anything. So that's the place to hit your Osai moonsault. Balor misses the coup de grace, and then we see Ivar with a cannonball, goes for the doomsault when Roxanne Perez shows up, distracts Ivar, and then with the ref tending to Perez, JD knocks him off balance, and Balor hits the coup de grace, pinning Ivar in 11 minutes and 8 seconds. So, not a great day for Eric.
Unfortunately not. No. Good match though. Strong reactions for Ivar, and I guess I don't know. New Day versus War Raiders does not feel hot at all to me, but that's pretty much the only team that's in the division.
Shouldn't Balor and JD be moving closer to a title shot now?
You're right.
Won.
They should. Yeah, well, maybe that was the point of all this, but they're heel, so I'm not sure how that's going to work. But this was also, of course, done to prolong the Roxanne being a very effective member of the Judgment Day story.
Becky Lynch video. She's only been back 6 weeks, and Lyra's already cost her the tag belts and a shot in Money in the Bank. She did everything for Lyra, and now she even gave her the greatest match of her career at Backlash. All of it because of me, and she's going to hold my hand up after Saturday. Kathy Kelly spoke with Vaquer, and Rhea Ripley, in her only scene on the whole show, walks up to Vaquer, shakes her hand, and says, "I'll see you on Saturday."
Yeah, I mean, they'd like to do this, like when Jade came out to the WWE, they paired her with like 10 different people, right? Just to like gauge the audience, but also just to kind of preview what they are going to assume will be a big match in the future.
Yeah. And there was a response to this, like two of their, more notable stars that will be in this match on Saturday. Yeah. Lyra comes out for another promo. And this is, you brought it up last week, but it seems a definite sort of mandate of giving Lyra as much promo time as they can. Every week they're giving her a segment to talk. And wouldn't you know it, that after a month of these, they've gone from very awkward to, you can tell like she is gaining like confidence and her promos are improving. And that's just over a couple of weeks. But she comes out. Wow, 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 wow. Such brave words, Becky, from your safe spot in the back. So she calls out Becky, who comes out. And then when she goes to speak, Lyra cuts her off. She's not going to let her speak. It's like she's just brought her out here to browbeat her and says that it is sad that Becky gave up being a good person, but you have unlocked something in me, anger. And she's getting wutted from this crowd, and Lyra just fights through it until they got tired of wutting. And she says that this is what has been unlocked inside of me, and it's going to destroy Becky. Becky tells Lyra that you had to search for a reason to hate me because you want to replace me, but no one can. I wanted to help you, but not anymore. Lyra challenges her to fight now. Becky explains, I don't fight in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'll see you in LA on Saturday. And Lyra chases after her, and there's a pull apart at the entrance. A good segment to send them into this match on Saturday.
Yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised by the live promo interactions between these two, primarily from Lyra Valkyria's side. She's at the point now where like she got whatted tonight. She's still, I wouldn't say necessarily connecting with the crowd, but I think in spite of that, her ability to just like plow through these segments, plow through these what chants, and continue to like show, I think, a pretty good level of confidence, for somebody who has never really been known to be any sort of like strong promo, to me has been impressive, and I think has changed my opinion on her sort of like abilities on the microphone. And I'm sure that the people in the back are making those same observations. Now, again, like I'm assuming she's going to lose to Becky, right? So the question I think we should have is, what is after this title run for Lyra Valkyria? Will it still be as a babyface? Because I think without Becky on the other side, that's going to be a bit of a tougher sell, in my opinion. I can see her losing and then turning heel, because I think she's shown enough like capability on the microphone where I think a heel run could be successful for her. But
I think it could go of two ways. I think it makes the most sense that Becky wins, but we kind of said that last month. You could do Becky winning and this sets up the rubber match, or you could have Lyra win.
She's already lost twice though.
She's lost twice, but that would necessitate Becky putting something up or some big stipulation. And you could do this either way with whoever wins, but I do feel this probably climaxes at Evolution with the finish of the feud.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because it's been built up significantly, and you could have Becky win, and then you just do the final match at Evolution, or you could go either way. Like Becky just wants one more chance, and that is like your.
Don't you think that's a bit too much though of these two together? Like that 3 matches. I mean, that's kind of what they do now with their feuds. But will the audience be bored of it by then?
I don't know. They put so much time into this one that
they add a cage or something, maybe.
Like we're talking it's another like 4 or 5 weeks of this. I could definitely see it continuing just because it's like right around the corner, unless you have a bigger plan for Becky on that show. Penta video, just hyping up Money in the Bank, and Jey Uso, Sami Zayn. They enter through the crowd. They do Jay's entrance, and we got Sami shades on as well. I'll
never get sick of Sami Zayn dancing to the Usos theme song. Never.
Yes. By the way, I finished the JJ McGee book on the Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens history. Like this is, I feel I have gone to such a depth on the history of this feud of 400 pages on this book. My takeaways. Number one, these two absolutely are operating at a level where the amount of Easter eggs that they put into their little things that tie into all these little things, from similar phrasing in matches with different opponents and all these little things. I mean, I don't think there was anything that this author did not uncover. And what was most, reminiscent is the whole lead up to WrestleMania 39 and the two of them winning the tag titles. Going like beat by beat of that whole bloodline build with Sami Zayn and then intertwining Kevin Owens. I mean, that really was some of the best storytelling WWE has done in years. When you see it all just page after page and going through everything in that, it really takes me back to that period of like when, like we were there for the Elimination Chamber show and just how hot it was. And I would say like that was the period where you could really look at a big shift. Like, yes, there was Cody coming to WWE. I think that started it. But like that Zayn attachment to the bloodline was a very significant chunk of WWE in this turnaround as well. And there's quite the bonus at the end of this book as well. That's my tease.
Interesting. But you recommend it?
I would. It's like, it is very in depth in terms of just going into, like, again, this is not about like behind the scenes and stuff, like a lot of it's what happened in front of the screen. But if you're interested in like two people that obviously take a ton of agency in their stories, and to a fault sometimes with how they've been, perceived as difficult by others, but two people that have an enormous care in their characters, their stories, and someone that was able to go into incredible detail and uncover all of this. Like I think if you were a fan of these two, like you would certainly get a lot from this book, and it's just an incredible amount of depth going into what is a 20 plus year story of these two going back to 2002.
Cool.
And I have no stake in this book. I'm just giving my unvarnished recommendation here. So we get into the match against the Brons, and this is Reed's first match since War Games, coming back, and Breaker runs the ropes, takes off Jay's head with a clothesline, and it's heat on Zayn until he makes the tag to Jay after landing a tornado DDT. The straps come down on Breaker, and a spear is stopped by Jay's super kick, and Zayn is caught by both men on the floor. Jay hits a suicide dive. All four are down when Rollins runs down, stomping Jay for a DQ in 9 minutes, bringing this to a halt. And Zayn attacks Seth, but the Brons set him up on the unsponsored desk. Reed then goes to the top. This was absolutely ludicrous that here this guy in his first match back, they're teasing was going to leap off the top for a tsunami through the indestructible desk. I was like, there is not a prayer that this is happening, but they sold it like this was so close to happening. And CM Punk shows up with a chair and stops Bronson Reed from killing himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I never want to see Bronson Reed pull off this tsunami through the desk, because I think that would be the end of Bronson Reed.
I don't either, but I think it was a solid tease. Like the key to pushing Bronson Reed continues to be through this threat of the tsunami, which I think they've handled so incredibly well. He came back, and I think now he's starting to feel like a big presence again, even next to Braun Breaker, who has just such a different aura about him. But like Reed is bringing something different to the table to this group, and I enjoyed this match, so I thought a successful week for them.
Judgment Day is in the back, and Liv confronts Balor about Roxanne Perez and what he's trying to do. And Balor just downplays this as it's all in your imagination, and that Roxanne could win Money in the Bank and bring the title back to the clubhouse, and just tells Liv, he puts Liv on the spot saying, "Don't you trust Dom?" And Liv responds, "It's not Dom that I don't trust." And she doesn't say that she's referring to Balor or Roxanne Perez. You're left to decipher this, but she is then instructing Balor, "You can be Roxanne's babysitter. I've got Raquel tonight to be in her corner." And then Dom, after Liv leaves, apologizes to Balor over the chair incident last week, and Balor just calls it water under the bridge. I think Balor is really getting into this role at this point, and I'm enjoying this of where this is going week by week. Some people might be exhausted from the Judgment Day interdrama, but I am kind of liking how this is all progressing.
I think it's more interesting than they've been in quite some time, since Rhea Ripley's and Damian Priest's exit. I feel like they're definitely leading the audience into thinking that Liv and Dom are going to be turning babyface. Like Dom's characterization has been incredibly, I would say, innocent, since WrestleMania. He's not really been doing anything all that bad. Liv still cheats in her matches, but I think she's still coming across as extremely likable, and we're gearing up for her to be cheated on or potentially be manipulated and screwed with by Finn Balor. So we're supposed to side with her. That seems to be the direction that they want us to think. Whether or not that's going to play out and who will be joining the two of them if they do leave Judgment Day remains to be seen, and it is a decently interesting story.
Could we not have just worked in a line here where, Finn, you were the one that said we don't need any more numbers in the Judgment Day. So if you're going to bring in Roxanne Perez, I'm making the executive decision to get rid of someone.
Absolutely.
And then she just eats an apple and walks out of the scene. That's it.
Oh, that would be
Could we have done anything here?
Yeah. My sense is that they're going to ignore these because they feel like anything sort of invitation for an audience to be reminded of these sort of things is bad for them. That's my sense.
I guess so, because there were absolutely no mentions of our outgoing characters. Kairi Sane and Raquel Rodriguez, man, this crowd was, they had just seen the match with Punk running out. I think they wanted to get to the main event, and they were just kind of on their hands for this until they decided, no, let's get engaged here. We have someone we can chant for. So there's truth chants. Then they turn into what's up chants, which Pat even acknowledged when Kairi was attacking and saying, that's what's up. So we saw Sane come off the top. She's caught by Raquel, and Sane was to turn it into a DDT, but did not quite get it. She goes for the insane elbow. Liv gets on the apron, so Io runs down, and as Raquel goes to grab Io, is booted into the post head first, and Kairi wins with the insane elbow in 6 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, a match that was pretty lacking in heat until the finish, lightly hijacked by the fans, and I would say, again, a rare instance of any sort of revolting chant against the current product WWE. So, tells you that
a light revolt. I like that term.
Yeah, light revolt. Yeah, minor.
It's like they raise their hand first. It's like, can we chant for the person we don't want to see let go?
Yeah, this was not like what was that famous match? Randy Orton and what am I thinking of?
And
Sheamus?
No,
Orton Sheamus.
Randy's been in a few of these where the crowd have just turned on. You're talking about the New Jersey one.
Yeah. This was not at that level, but it was the closest we've gotten to something like that since
Do we get a beach ball before the end of the summer? That's the tide turning.
Depends who they release. Yeah.
Zayn is being taken care of backstage after the attack, and Karrion Kross comes in telling Sami, "You're a liar to the people and to yourself."
Hey, good reaction for Karrion Kross coming on the screen. Yeah.
Yes.
Audiences are, they have been for weeks now, but ever since that promo, they've been very behind Karrion Kross in almost this sort of like, he's becoming like a bit of a Daniel Bryan type of character on screen.
The promo did him a lot of favors, the one right after WrestleMania, and he does a very good job of promoting himself when it's not really, he is not featured all that much on television, and when it is, it's usually like just forgettable scenes. But I think that combined with, I think a lot of people are into this Sami potential turn and Kross being a necessary device to potentially get there, that now it does feel like he's involved in a story and has a purpose for it.
Yeah. But even last week, I believe like he's been making a bit of an online campaign for being a Money in the Bank winner. And when last week didn't happen, he tweeted something to the effect of like, "I saw that too," or something like that. I think he knows exactly what he's doing, and I think the WWE knows exactly what they're doing with it. So if I'm the WWE, if you want to continue the sentiment, continue not booking Karrion Kross in any sort of significant role other than these like occasional few second interactions. I think that's been working out perfectly fine.
So he explains that you could have been a champion 10 times over. We know your history. You're capable of doing terrible things. You're a bad guy, just like the rest of us. Zayn says, "You're wrong." And Kross says, "I might be, but I might be right too."
Mm-hmm. So yeah, now they're like pretty like spelling out pretty explicitly like what the story is with Zayn and the internal struggle we have here, Mm-hmm. Like he literally said, "You're not a good guy, you're a bad guy." So I think at this point it deserves to be kind of like brought out into the forefront a lot more. And Zayn is such a strong actor in pro wrestling that I'm excited to see where he takes it.
Bloodsport. That's where this gets settled.
With Sami Zayn?
Sure. Kelly interviewed Roxanne Perez. This was during the commercial break. Didn't say much here. She's not here to assist, but take over the division. Jay is in his locker room, and in walks Gunther, and he sits down. And already I was engaged of whatever this conversation was going to be. And this was mainly Gunther just doing all the talking. He says, "The title is personal to me. I appreciate the effort, Jay, that you have put into this, but I need to take it from you. You're a great guy, very selfless in a very selfish business. I assume that if Punk needs you later tonight, you'll be there for him." And then...
he was right.
He was right. Yes. That
got tsunami'd.
You're always there for all of your friends. And then 2 nights before facing me, you're going to be teaming with Cody on Saturday night's main event. So that means that WWE is running a Saturday night's main event head-to-head with itself on Saturday after Worlds Collide. And now it's getting out of control.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. That's next level counter programming.
Gunther just kept going through here. I mean, who can keep track of all these
Oh,
shows?
come on. I bet you.
He almost called this Double or Nothing, I bet. He says, Jay, you're a very nice guy, but you're making it very easy for me to get vengeance for WrestleMania. The party ends next week. And Jay's rebuttal was 3 letters, 1 word, tap. And Gunther was like, okay, I'm done. Goodbye. That's not a good comeback. So there you go.
Yeah. I think they're doing a really good job at building to this match by telling us the story.
They are setting up the very believable potential of a title change here. Like this is going to be Jay that's probably going to get the shit beat out of him on Saturday. He's going in injured after tonight's angle. I think
they should book Jey Uso for Worlds Collide and have him, do double duty that particular evening so that he's extra tired.
The dreaded Mr. Iguana, Michael Cole's favorite. He noted tonight.
You think Jey Uso should be Mr. Iguana? He should play the role of Mr. Iguana.
Maybe, maybe Nino Hamburguesa will come out and. I don't know.
Yeah. I think they're doing a very convincing job to the point where, like, can we completely rule out the idea that Gunther could beat Jay for the championship?
Not at all. I think there's a real interesting story of Jay was there for all his friends and then he loses. And where were they? Which you could play with. I mean, there's stuff you could certainly do. I think that this was set up well. And I think many people will, be into this match next week with the potential that you could do the title change. I'm not as where are you on this Jay title run as it's been going so far? That we are, we're only a month and a half into him winning this. I feel like it's too soon to be taking the belt off of Jay.
Well, that's the biggest thing. Why I would say it would be hard to believe. It's not like that. I mean, it doesn't feel like he's established himself enough yet to the point where I feel like it would be time. At the same time, I think that alone is a bit of a story too, like the fact that what works for the Jey Uso character is his continued sort of like self-doubt and the sort of confidence issues. And what would be a great way to restart that storyline than to have him lose a championship a month and a half in. So I don't rule it out. I also think about like what a loss to Gunther would do to Gunther again, who I think is so much more valuable being this like unstoppable like entity that never loses and can easily avenge his losses.
It's a very good setup for this match. I look at it with
sorry, I wanted to just again thank you Shelton Mysterio for reminding us that Money in the Bank will be active by then as well next Monday. So that's always a possibility.
Yeah, there's that as well. And I look at the fact that like who are your big matches, and 2 of the big ones are Seth and Sammy, and I think like Jay being the champion in those scenarios is the stronger one.
Right.
But there's definitely a lot of ways of which you can go with this next Monday. Main event: AJ Styles, El Grande Americano, and CM Punk. Punk has the referee check Grande's mask, which would come into play in the finish. They explain there's no disqualification, but they had the ref check. What would the ref have done? Like if the guy said, yeah, I do have an object here, but I'm going to leave it here because it's no DQ.
I guess you have the right to, I don't know. You can't bring a baseball bat to the ring. You can retrieve it. You can retrieve it.
What, I just leave it at ringside and then I'll use the bat when I need it?
The answer is yes.
It's my Slim Jim bat. Snap into it.
Wrestling's weird.
Grande is sent out of the ring, and Punk just gets a grin on his face as he gets to lock up with AJ. Their Ian Rotten special here.
Yeah. Are you disappointed Michael Cole and his research team didn't make the note?
Oh my! Shades of I sound like Dave Prazak here on commentary, calling this one. So there's a dragon screw onto Punk by Grande, and the knee would be focused on throughout the match. And then, as Punk is on the bad leg, he lifts Grande onto his shoulders and gets stopped by AJ, and we get more "We Want Truth" chants. The Styles Clash gets countered into an ankle lock, and they take turns countering out of it, sending Gable back and forth, and he keeps getting the ankle lock on both men. both men. And then after our light protest chant, after a Styles clash, Punk stops the cover and we get the "This is awesome" chant. So this was a crowd that they were like, oh, we'll get to R-Truth later. This is a good match. So there's a jackknife cover by Punk onto AJ, and they had to wait for Gable's moonsault here. This was a little late because the ref just basically couldn't count 3 until the moonsault was hit. And then we get the GTS delivered, and Bron shows up, yanking Punk to the floor with Bronson. So Jay and Zayn immediately run out. Reed backs into AJ, stopping a phenomenal forearm, and Styles hits a springboard high cross. This man was elated. He was so happy that he hit this. He just roared. Oh, hell. And then there's a phenomenal forearm to El Grande Americano that is met with a headbutt from Americano, who pins AJ Styles, and it is El Grande Americano who is now going into the Money in the Bank ladder match and pulling double duty on Saturday.
Presumably, we don't know for sure that they're the same person, John, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to be the gag instead.
I think it's a good
matches.
Well, it's a good gimmick, you know. It's like through Americano, this is like a device that links both Worlds Collide and Money in the Bank into like one story. We're gonna get to see what he's gonna have an excuse, but like it's going to be interesting to see presumed Chad Gable be on a second match of the evening after working the main event of Worlds Collide. So it increases interest in Worlds Collide. Stephanie Vaquer is also working double duty, although she's not really working this sort of storyline. I thought the match was entertaining. You know, it was helped by the crowd's love of Punk, of course, but I thought it was primarily driven by Gable's very strong heel character. When you look at the field, I actually think Gable, El Grande Americano, makes a great candidate to hold Money in the Bank. You know, for the type of character that he has, the briefcase is feels like it's a very fitting device. And if there's ever a maybe sort of justifiable way for like Gable, somebody who's still very undersized in the WWE, to win the championship, I think through a Money in the Bank would actually be very sensible.
Yeah, I would only say that I just thought that, you know, this will be a very good match, but I think you eliminated so much star power not having Punk part of this, and would not seem that maybe there's some kind of interaction between Punk and Rollins on the show, but like this show, to me, it does feel like this one is like it's really up to your interest in the ladder matches. And I would not say that this is a show that, at least on paper with these 4 matches, it jumps out at me in the same way that just a Punk in this ladder match. I think it enhances the match greatly, that a Gable is not going to provide that same spark beyond it being, a quality match, which I think is a given that it will be.
Yeah, no doubt. But they have a bigger story to tell, you know, and I feel like they're confident enough that just having the Money in the Bank gimmick will be enough of a draw for people. I expect Punk to have some sort of role here.
If you paid $1,000 for front row seats, would you be happy with this lineup?
I don't know if there's any lineup. You could bring back like Mitsuharu Misawa and you know,
that would be really hard to pull off.
I don't know if
that might be worth $1,000.
I don't know if I'd pay a ticket to anything. I don't know if I'd pay a ticket to like
Justice.
Fuck no, absolutely not. I don't think I'd pay I wouldn't pay that. Well, my children's wedding, okay, is the only instance where I could see spending $1,000. Beyond that, I'm sorry.
You might be on the hook for more than $1,000 away. I hate to break it to you.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That was Raw. Overall, it was a crowd that was very much missing one Ron Killings, and we got our final qualifiers and the continued build of Jey Uso, good guy.
Does it feel like an appropriate amount of matches? They got 4 matches so far. The 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches, Becky Lynch versus Lyra Valkyria, which, by the way, is a last chance match. So if Lynch loses, she can no longer challenge. But I guess if Valkyria loses,
that's the stipulation. Right. So, I mean, based on that, yeah, if you are going to get to the 3rd match at Evolution, which is actually the 4th match,
Becky would have to win. Yeah. And then we also have Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso versus John Cena and Logan Paul. 4-match show. Can you see them adding another one?
They could certainly throw one more on from the SmackDown side. I'm just really surprised that for like a big show at the Intuit Dome in the LA market that they didn't work Punk onto this into this show, which I mean he could have some role on this show. Yeah, they could throw one more, but I mean you are going to get 3 of these 4 matches are getting a lot of time, and this is a WWE show. They could easily fill 3 hours with these 4 shows, knowing their pacing.
Oh, we gotta calculate the time allotted for the Travis Scott interaction in the main event, which will probably extend it by like another half hour.
Maybe we'll get a concert.
We could, yeah.
All possible.
You're paying $1,000. You got to get something
minimum. I mean, you could be paying more. Depends. It's a hot ticket. All right. Well, there you go, everybody. That was the final Raw before Money in the Bank. Again, we'll be live here on the channel Saturday evening after Money in the Bank, which has a 7 Eastern start time. So give or take 10. We better be done that show by 10 p.m. if we have 4 matches.
I think they're going to add one more.
I could see one more being thrown in there. Yeah, possible. We're going to go to forum.postwrestling.com. I blanked on that one after all these years. Jurassic Park fan, good evening, guys. Embarrassing actions from WWE regarding the release non-renewal of wrestlers like R-Truth, who are so beloved by fans at large, but especially how they handle it. I get WWE is technically full within their rights to not renew contracts, but the guy was just in a match with John Cena, and then another match, and then it seems like WWE doesn't even bother properly informing him and other wrestlers. Their penny pinching is classified as ruthless by some, but when you're making record profits and selling out arenas, why take away wrestlers your paying audience loves, likes, especially when you have reportedly no attitude problems and are hard workers. I'm glad I haven't financially supported WWE since they started going to Saudi Arabia, and they come across with things like this, as Paul Levesque does with his false modesty, phony, greedy, and arrogant. He asks, how much do you think Paul Levesque was behind this? And could the We Want Truth chants catch on? And will arenas hijack shows like the Yes Movement if these non-renewals continue? And could it convince WWE to do a U-turn? So you suggested this earlier. First of all, there is no way that Paul Levesque is kicking and screaming and they're telling him, it's got to be R-Truth. Like,
who is that? If we're looking at the WWE like it's a sports team, who is the head coach? Okay, like you have the financiers, you have the people up top that are maybe in charge of the business, but who is in charge of the roster? Who is in charge of making those decisions?
I would state that it would be like if your general manager is Nick Khan, Paul Levesque is the head coach. And if you're the general manager, I think you're deferring to your head coach of, we've got to make X, Y, and Z off our books. Who is it going to be? And maybe it's a short list, but there's no way if Paul Levesque is making a concerted case for an R-Truth that a Nick Khan is saying, tough.
Of course it's Levesque. Who else could it be? Can you imagine somebody else telling Levesque that they're going to release somebody? Of course it has to be him. People I don't understand.
It's the same thing
people.
We just talked about with like the AJ Styles, Paul Heyman stuff. It's like, dude, Vince McMahon is not Paul. I love these guys. I hate to see them go. Like,
yeah. Like I just can't imagine people. Like, I understand there are people that, like, he's built up an incredible reputation for himself, Paul Levesque has, but I just can't see people like not like being so blind to the idea that somebody that you can argue has done great work creatively can also be the person in charge of making tough decisions like this. It's part of the role of being a boss, isn't it?
And let's also bring up the fact, like, just the optics of this. And again, this is not to, like, there is, like, last week MVP did an interview and he stated how he, like, his opinion of Paul Levesque was greatly harmed by how he handled Bobby Lashley after he took over him. And MVP has been, like, he has never called Paul Levesque, like, racist, but I mean, it's something that was absolutely a discussion point when you just had MVP kind of bring this up. And there's been criticism in the past about performers of color in WWE. And then you see, like, the most beloved figure in R-Truth let go, like, just from the optics side of things, it brings about that topic. And that is not going to endear Paul Levesque to fans as well. Like, this was just a bad blunder to me of one person that it is a small amount in the grand scheme of things that brings a lot of goodwill, and that, quite frankly, could have been put in so many different roles that you could have had value from a brand ambassador to somebody that could do just X, Y, and Z with your company. That, I mean, quite frankly, not too many performers are going to get this level of resistance from not just the fans, but the roster too.
Okay. Yeah. I want to have this conversation, but I also want to like bring up the idea that there's an NXT in a performance center right now overflowing with people looking for spots. How do you keep everybody that's beloved on this roster while also making room for that newer crop?
Listen, there's going to be a finite number of spots that you can have featured. You could argue this about, like, it comes at a time when R-Truth is being used more heavily than he has been.
So like, is the mistake they made featuring R-Truth in that Cena program prior to this?
I don't think so. I think it was met fairly well for a short program.
No, is the mistake doing that program right before not renewing his contract?
I think that adds a little bit to it, but I still feel like there would have been negativity towards R-Truth. I'll say this about it. Like, we do always bring this up, especially with WWE, that this is not the case of someone that's got a 5-year contract and in year 2 they're cutting them. Like that's pretty ruthless.
Mm-hmm. This is what Tony Khan does.
This is a contract that is not being renewed at the end of it. And listen, like, if an audience is upset that a performer that they love is gone, they have every right to voice that dissension. I mean, that is what your audience is there for. It's like, we are here to create a product that is going to make the most amount of money for us while also providing the entertainment to our audience. And this is an audience that they really like this character that has probably been part of WWE programming for most of their fandom of this whole period. So I think you have to weigh things about, yes, you have a factory of people coming up in NXT, and there are more names than ever that are being brought up. But, like, are we just going to have like you reach this age and there's a cutoff point? Of course not. Like, there are...
Depends how valuable you are to the company.
Like that, and that's it. Like, that's what we're talking about. Like, nobody would expect them to tell AJ Styles, your contract, you're 48 as of today, that, we're not renewing your contract. Because there is a value to an AJ Styles, but for an R-Truth.
But without knowing how much R-Truth was making, we can't accurately say what was valuable to the WWE.
Well, here's a guy, like, I can imagine that this guy was not pulling in multi-7 figures. Okay, like,
well, what's the sort of breaking point of what's considered valuable for them?
I would argue that there is not one person on this roster that I would say is overpaid, given the revenue versus what these performers are making.
You would say that. What would Mark Shapiro say? Because I think somebody like him can look at numbers and can be able to say this person's making too much for what we're doing with them.
Well, that's a separate discussion that you can have about where performers find, like, at the end of the day, what leverage do these performers have in these situations? This is mitigated to John Cena will post an R-Truth photo and people can tweet about this, but ultimately people are going to move on from this R-Truth story, and those are their options that they have. I mean, this is not something where our talent that are going to band together or stick up for themselves or state the fact that, okay, we are getting, we don't know the exact number, but let's say they're getting 15% of revenues, and that's probably in line with what the actual figures are. And that's grossly underpaying your talent. But that's not on TKO to just voluntarily up that number, just like it isn't voluntary for the UFC to do so. They're criticized for it, but they'll take that criticism. Like, ultimately, like, these talents have left themselves to where this Slim Jim deal, they are not privy to a percentage of this Slim Jim deal. Like, they are in this where you're a Mark Shapiro, you can say that, yeah, this is our cap on how much we pay. You will have to have a foundation of fighters or wrestlers that are all going to get together and force themselves to have some level of collective bargaining. And I just don't see that happening at all. So TKO gets to dictate what is market value, what's not market value. And we're just going to keep this at a certain level. But I absolutely believe like of what they're making versus what is being paid out to fighters and wrestlers. I think like that's the reason TKO is making all this, is because fighter costs are capped at a very, very low level compared to other sports that have that level of protection and leverage.
Yeah, you're talking about a company that right now is looking to save on any area, any department. And it's not just the talent, but the people that have been downsized as a result of these overlaps with a UFC office, for instance. So again, without knowing like the economics of the situation, it's hard to say, but we could definitively say from a PR perspective, it's a really bad look for this company.
But let's just extend this a little further. What do you feel is the ultimate, like, let's say WWE, they are coming together. It's like, okay, this is not going to be a popular move with an R-Truth. And this might not be a popular move when we're going to, attack AEW in such a transparent way to some of our fan base. But what is the value we are getting out of that? We are saving this much money. We're moving towards this goal by getting rid of this talent or these talents versus we're going to put up with some chants. We're going to have a couple days of bad Twitter. Like, that's kind of what they're weighing here. Like, what is really the long-lasting effects of these moves? Does TKO get to their initiative? They make this cut, and what is the downside? Are people going to stop watching? Are they going to at all harm their business by these kinds of moves? That's what they're weighing.
Each isolated incident, the answer is no, it won't hurt them. They're essentially bulletproof to these sort of things. I also think that there's an element of them like kind of burying their head in the sand to these sort of things, right? Because ultimately, like on one of those TKO investors calls, how does any of this get brought up? Those are the people that Ari Emanuel and Mark Shapiro care about the most, right? None of them are aware of any of this stuff. But it doesn't mean it doesn't matter, because I have a strong belief that like the success that they're enjoying today has been bred out of like the tiny little bits of goodwill that they managed to create for themselves. And I think if it snowballs, it can affect their overall business, or at least like an audience's desire to want to see something different from maybe what they're presenting. And this weekend might have been one of the louder moments of that throughout this entire regime.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that there is,
and that's why I also think that they're looking to course correct as much as they can.
Yeah, and you already brought that point up. Like the idea of R-Truth being brought back, I don't dismiss that. I don't. Like it will be a question if this actually does continue, these chants. They were very audible tonight. Will they be on Friday, on Saturday? I mean, that'll be a question, and it's one where you can't dismiss that as a potential conclusion to this story too.
All right, let's go to Brian from New Jersey, who says, along with the intermittent chants for R-Truth, I also appreciated the Tulsa crowd for the brief dueling chant during the main event. He's Chad Gable, and no, he's not. John and Way probably surprised Gable is doing double duty on Saturday. I'm certainly surprised Punk didn't qualify. I enjoyed the final two qualifiers tonight and the further proof of Rhea Ripley's immense popularity just from appearing in one backstage scene.
Okay, let's go here to Dave. Many have left their thoughts about the Truth and Carlito releases, so I'll spare you having to read another, but I will say I hope they can reach a deal with Truth to remain with the company in some capacity, whether on a Legends deal or as a producer. On to the episode. It was a pretty run-of-the-mill episode for Raw. Karrion Kross has received a lot of positive crowd reaction since his post-Mania promo. The main event was great to start. I hope one day we get a real Styles Punk match before they both retire, and I'm not thrilled with El Grande Americano winning. It feels as if they will have Americano win the ladder match to cash in on Vikingo at some point for the AAA title, which would render the briefcase gimmick pointless if the title is cashed in, isn't even on WWE TV regularly. So what, he would lose to Vikingo?
Can't imagine that at all.
I don't either. Okay,
the Mega Championship is not even, it's on the totem pole of like value, it's underneath the NXT North American Championship in the WWE ecosystem. It's arguably underneath the TNA Championship. in their ecosystem. For them to sacrifice one of the biggest sort of devices they have to pay that off, it's just not something I could see.
Could get the TNA title. Is that possible? Maybe Joe Hendry runs in and wins.
At present, this can all change, of course, but there's not even been one mention of the Mega Championship other than the graphic.
Well, we did get the graphic back tonight, so
yeah. Let's go to Jeremy in Texas, who says, first Cody and now Punk, alluding to Dwayne. WWE must really want us to think he's showing up soon. It made too much sense for Dwayne to show up at WrestleMania, and we know how that turned out. I think Punk is just going to say whatever he wants to say. I don't think that's supposed to mean anything.
Him showing up, like if he is, like LA is the place to do it for a Dwayne Johnson, and it does give this show.
What could he possibly show up to do, though?
He comes out, he puts up the 3 fingers again, like he did in Atlanta last year, and then just walks out.
To what point? I guess, to what point?
Wait, how many times do I have to tell
you? Can you play the clip?
At the end of the day, let us all remind them that The Rock is the final boss, thinking 20 steps ahead. So the best thing for them to do is to know their role, shut their mouth, and enjoy the ride that The Rock is taking them on.
Okay, Wai?
This is all part of the process.
I'll just shut up and enjoy step 19 of 20.
Just shut.
All right.
Shut up. Stupid fans. Pay your fucking money. Go to your on location and zip it, okay? You want truth? I'll give you the truth. We're raising prices.
Is that how
announce in the middle of the ring on Saturday?
Is that how Dwayne could rehab his image, reintroduce his new rehire?
Fuck y'all. You're all going to watch The Smashing Machine anyway, and you're going to watch this goddamn live action adaptation of Moana that no one's asking for. You're all going to go watch this shit. Okay.
He says Rollins winning Money in the Bank may be too obvious, but it also fits the story. They've really made Jey Uso vulnerable heading into Money in the Bank, and with the upcoming match against Gunther, can a cash in and Gunther's angle with Goldberg all potentially happen over the next week? I think it's
possible. That's a good point. Like we have the whole Goldberg thing as well with Gunther, we would assume. But yeah, I mean, if that is going to happen July 12th, next Monday would be as good a place as any to shoot that angle for
LA
Goldberg.
Sure. Yeah. I think you can get a cash in tease. I could imagine like if it's Rollins holding it, they'll probably want him with the briefcase a little bit longer just to kind of like give that spotlight to him and build the anticipation a little bit more. I don't rule it a women's cash in, that could happen. Although it would make more sense for the men to do it next week. Yeah, it's all possible. All right, let's go do your turn. Yeah.
Stephanie Vaquer walked in the door and owned the place. It's insane how over she is right now. And she's doing double duty. As a result, just 22 blocks apart. That's a bit of a walk from the Forum to the Intuit Dome. Jey Uso's title run is in jeopardy as he's fighting a war on 2 fronts. I love that Punk knew it was Gable underneath the mask. Yeah, that detective CM Punk, he just knew it. El Grande being in the ladder match keeps his feud with Penta alive, but the joke is overstaying its welcome. Solid go home.
So the only punchline to all of this is that Gable unmasks, and it's not Chad Gable, right? Yeah, so who is the body double that they are auditioning right now and telling to work out and make sure your traps are like just this exact size, and get this exact tan, get this tattoo on the back of your neck.
Yeah, he needs an Eric Angle.
Yeah. Who are they hiring right now, auditioning right now in the PC just to mold into the body of Chad Gable? I wonder. All right, let's go lastly to Jake from the Windy City, who says this was a decent go-home show to pave the way for Saturday's various events. It does feel like the women's divisions are turning a corner, especially with the emergence of Miss Vaquer. And we got a big show next Monday, too, as we might get a new world champ, or we'll see main event Jay overcome all the odds. Either one is fine with me. Unlikely to happen, but it would be cool to see Mike Tenay at Worlds Collide as a throwback to the original event from '94. Even though he's been out of the scene for years, surely he's still able to call a show well. What are the chances of Mike Tenay calling Worlds Collide?
I mean, that would be a nice little callback, even to sit in for a match or two. I would say very, very low. I'm really interested who are on commentary for this show, and I wonder if we will even know that before Saturday, because I think that's a huge part to the show and how the show is received by the English-speaking audience.
Yeah, I think it'll be Vic. Maybe somebody with on color with a bit more of a Ray is on the poster all over this thing. He's still yet to be announced officially for a role other than potentially coming out with the LWO. But he's somebody I could see them wanting to put on commentary. He says also, and every minute of that Spanish Grand Prix on Sunday sure had drama and excitement in the last few laps. Hulkenberg overtaking Hamilton in the Ferrari is just insane, and it shocked me to see Max doing some Hogan-esque politicking and almost pulling a GT on Russell. So erratic and dangerous. Yeah. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so the Spanish Grand Prix, we're talking about F1, everybody. For people that I'm reminded this is a free show, and sometimes we might get into this, but Max basically, so there was a restart after a safety car for the final 6 laps, and Max was, I'm trying to rethink what it was. He was hit by George Russell, which forced him off track. And Red Bull, his engineers told him, hey, Max, you kind of continued off track. Therefore, you got to give the position back to Russell. And Max refused, saying that he hit me. I'm not going to do that. So eventually he relented, let Russell through, and then midway through ran into Russell as retaliation, or maybe just like, you know, a moment of like frustration, you could say. But it was certainly the talk of the racing world that day. And one of the big, like, he went from potentially competing for number 3, and I'm not even talking about the changing, like, the hard tire issue. Anyway, he went from competing to 3 in the last, for position 3 in the last 3 laps, getting a 10-place penalty that ended up dropping him to 10th position, all in the last 6 laps, which is crazy.
It sounds dramatic.
Yeah, it was. Anyway, thank you, everybody, for your feedback in the Post Wrestling Cafe.
And thanks to everyone for checking out this special free edition, the XL edition of Rewind to Raw. We are here every Monday night at postwrestlingcafe.com. We go live after Raw, after Dynamite, and after SmackDown. So this is what you get with the full Rewind a Blank experience. So we hope you enjoyed this. Subscribe to the channel, like this video. It goes a long way. It really shows us that you're paying attention, more so than anything, that you've made it to the end of the show. Again, coming up this week, we have got a special midnight airing of Rewind to Dynamite Wednesday night, and then back Thursday with the Ask Away mailbag show, where your questions can be submitted at forum.postwrestling.com. We've already got quite a lot for this month. You can also send a voice message for us, free to submit, memo.fm/postwrestling, and we will get to your questions this Thursday as we catch up on all the questions that are being asked. Maybe what are your favorite moves in wrestling?
Top 5 moves.
Well, we're going to end things off a little differently. Taking us out is the late Jordan Breen, because today I went back and I listened to a little bit of Jordan Breen when him and I got together for an old review away, and Jordan Breen waxing poetic on what he believed was his favorite professional wrestling match of all time. So here it is, Jordan Breen, as only he could, with his beautiful match breakdown of a WCW classic in 1990. Then we go to the unofficial main event of the show.
Oh, fuck.
The Night Stalker and Sid Vicious.
I think, again, adjusting for the context, I think it's the worst pro wrestling match ever. Watching him punch and kick, it is abundantly clear that Sid, by virtue of his size and jockey, has never really actually been beat up in his life. Sid's clearly never been in a fight because he clearly has no idea how to punch and kick people. John, it's about to get worse because after this, they back up, they're beating each other up, and it happens. The big cat's back, and Paulie dangerously yells, "I think I taught a putty tat," at the top of his lungs at least twice.
They fought over an axe, and an axe was used to lead to the finish, with Randy Anderson conscious, standing in the fucking ring.
Okay, so here's the very end. The bitterest end as Pollock grabs his head in pain. Clark, he night stalks. It's the evening. He stalks towards Sid Vicious with his giant axe, which, by the way, he's not going to swing. He's obviously going to use the handle.
Of course. Using the sting bat technique.
Sid hits both of them with the axe. It looks positively pathetic. Brian Clark goes down. Terrible-looking pinfall. 1, 2, 3. On the chronic tip, I find it hard to believe that the Ganj wouldn't have instrumentally helped Brian Clark in this. Because, like, dude, chill out. Again, like, going back to the axe spot, chill out and relax. Have faith that Sid's going to kick you. You know what I mean? If this dude had smoked a blunt before this might not have been the biggest catastrophe in the history of time.